That has unfortunately to some extent also led into what I dare to call modern phrenology, because we are now in an area where we have the imaging techniques available which makes it possible for us to find specific areas of the brain which become active when we're doing different mental exercises or doing basically whatever. So you end up with nice color images like this, which is basically, in this case, it's so-called maternal love. It's the kind of activation you will see in the brain of a mother who is looking at its child. Whereas this is romantic love. This is when you look at a person either of your own sex or the opposite sex, but to whom you feel somewhat romantically inclined. And then you see these areas which are being involved. And that's all very fine, but does it tell us anything? It doesn't really tell us anything. This is just the same as what Gall was basically doing. You're looking for some kind of fingerprint which is not really telling you what these areas are doing, how the network is being organized, what is actually happening here. So it is essentially modern phrenology, which moves away from an actual understanding of how the brain works. What is happening here is basically that we're focusing on specific areas which, for some reason or another, light up and have more activity in one situation than another. Obviously, in order to produce an image like this, you have to compare it to something else. Otherwise, you cannot see that you have increased activity when you're having romantic love or maternal love. So the problem here is, what is the control situation when you're looking at romantic love? And that's usually people looking at some other images. So romantic love then becomes defined as the difference between you looking at someone that you love as to someone you don't love. And is that really a fair comparison? And does that really show you that these areas are involved in generating your experience of love, or what? So it gives a wrong impression. It also gives a wrong impression because what we're actually seeing here is slight changes in blood flow, basically. It's just that those neurons which are located in that area need more oxygen. But it's not very much more. It's slight differences. And it doesn't reveal that all the other parts of the brain are actually hugely active in all of these situations. So it's not like the rest of the brain, although it looks as if it is like that, are silent here. They're hugely active. The whole brain is enormously active in both situations. So it's just a slight difference. But that doesn't show that it's only this area and this area which are active. The rest of the brain is quite active as well. So therefore we end up believing that it is only this area and this area and this area which are involved when we're in love. But that's wrong. It's our whole brain, bloody hell. So we get the wrong idea from this. And therefore, I really think one of the most important things probably that you should get out of this course, if anything, is not to believe too much in images like that, but be critical to them, because they really only tell us that there is a slight difference in two different situations in that area in particular, but it doesn't really tell you what that area is doing or what the rest of the brain is doing. And this leads us again then to this kind of image, which is a diffusion tensor imaging, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later, which really shows all the different connections in the brain. So what we shouldn't forget is that those areas here are tightly coupled with lots of other areas in the brain, and the brain works as a network, as you can see here. So all of that is connected to something else, and that influences each other. So it's not like, even though definitely we can see that there are specific areas of the brain which have specific roles, they're part of a network. And it's not like a module which can be taken out and which works all by itself. It works as part of the rest of the brain. And this is also what we're realizing to an increasing extent in relation to language, that it's certainly correct that we have a specific area for the motor part of the language, we have a sensory area, but there are lots of interconnections and there are lots of other areas which also contribute. And it's hugely plastic, so it can be changed, and there are other parts of the brain which can take over some of these functions. And that's important also in relation to our possibilities of rehabilitation and of actually recovering function after lesions of the brain.